Hey kids, it's Mr. Flower here, hope you're well. Welcome aboard another motorcycle review on this absolutely glorious spring day. It's a lovely day, and you find me today just entering the village of Hyde Heath here in South Buckinghamshire. And I'm on another of my classic bike reviews. Today the bike I'm riding is a bike that is a bit of a bruiser, a bike that I was always a little bit afraid of, but it's one I've always wanted to have a ride on. So absolutely chuffed that I'm riding it today. This is the Yamaha XJR1300. If you're interested in this bike, stick around and stay tuned. I'll tell you what I think of it. Alright, the mighty XJR1300 then. This particular one that I'm on is a 2013 model, so it's a 9-year-old bike, and it is an absolute bruising brute. It's a great bike to ride, having ridden the Yamaha VMAX recently. If you haven't seen that video, go and check out the link in the corner after this one. But this bike is sort of in a similar vein in that it's just a big, almost like a muscle bike as far as I'm concerned. A big air-cooled engine, 4 cylinders in this case, inline 4, super smooth to ride, and physically a big machine. It's a bike that's been around for absolutely ages. I think it has something like a 17-year production run, which is amazing. As I say, this particular bike is a 2013 model, which is basically towards the end of the run. They changed the bike in 2015, made it look very much more sort of hipster. But anyway, more about that in a minute. Before I talk about how the bike rides and so on, let me jump off and show you this particular machine. Alrighty, let me show you the design of this beast and some of the features of the bike then. Starting off with this massive engine on here. Look at this beauty. 4-cylinder, mostly air-cooled unit. I say mostly air-cooled. You've got the fins there for the air cooling, but of course you've got this oil cooler here as well. All these 4-into-1 pipe, which looks absolutely incredible. Needs a bit of a clean on this one, I do apologise. But what a huge lump of an engine. It's brilliant. At the front end here, I mean, it just looks like a proper motorbike, this one. Now, it is fitted with a couple of non-standard items, as you can probably see. First off, this fly screen. It's I think this is a pooch, or pooig, some people call it, but it's pronounced pooch, I happen to know. Fly screen. I think if it's my bike, I'd take that off, because I absolutely love the way that these clocks look on here. Look at these things. They're like almost like bullet design dials on here. It looks fantastic. If I show you those close up, because you couldn't see them on the bike because the camera was in the way, but they're lovely and old school, really clear to read. You've got your fuel gauge in the middle and the clock and your odo, and that's basically it. But I love that about the bike. Switch gear on here, very basic. Nothing complicated about this machine at all. Your indicators, your lights on this side, and your horn, of course, and then your start stop, and that's basically it. Okay, coming down, massive fuel tank on here. You've got the Öhlins suspension at the back, which looks fantastic, and this big old pipe on the back as well. This particular bike, I don't know, but I suspect it may have lived outdoors, because there's a little bit of corrosion around the pipe tip there. There's a little bit of wear on the fuel tank here. You can see where somebody's legs have been, so it maybe needs some sort of protection on there. And then the other thing I've noticed about this bike is there's some corrosion here. Look, the chrome is coming off the stem there on the mirror. But other than that, the bike seems okay. It certainly rides all right. Looking around it, what else to show you? Just ignore the tray plate. Oh, it's got a top box on here as well, which I'd also, although it's handy, I'd definitely get rid of that, because I just think it looks horrible. Without the top box and without the fly screen, this bike looks so much better. A big bruising muscle bike. I absolutely love it. Alrighty, that's enough chat about it then. You've seen the bike. Let's jump on, see how she rides. Okay, so welcome back aboard the giant XJR1300 then. A big bruiser of a bike, but even on this first ride I've realised it's much more of a pussycat than you'd think. Even though it is heavy, and I'll go through the specs in a minute the usual way, this comes in at something like 245 kilograms wet. It feels light when you're riding it. Heavy bikes always do, but this feels unusually agile. I think it might be because the weight on that big old engine is kind of canted forward, and therefore it carries the weight quite low. But it's a big old lazy ride on this. It's all about the torque, as it often is on these super powerful bikes. Let's just talk about how the thing feels comfort wise. Well, riding position is very, very nice. My legs are tucked up at quite an acute angle here. Hope you can see that on the 360 camera. The pegs are sort of rear set. It feels quite sporty from your waist down, but waist up I'm sat upright, very comfy. The handlebars are relatively narrow on here compared to more modern day bikes that I've ridden, but it's not uncomfortable. I'm leant forward a little bit, but no real weight to speak of on my wrists or whatever. So yeah, comfy place to be. This particular bike, as I showed you, has got a screen fitted on it, but I'm still getting quite a bit of airflow into my face. It's clean air, but then, you know, it's basically a naked bike, so don't expect too much wind protection. But this engine is oh so smooth. No vibrations from this 4-cylinder loveliness. Really nice. I'm always surprised when I'm riding these older bikes just how good the engines feel. I mean, this one's 9 years old now, but it still rides absolutely beautifully. Alright, let's go this way, head a little bit more into the urban jungle, see what she's like at sort of slower speeds in amongst traffic, depending on how busy it is out here today. Whoops, missed the gear there. So there we go, false neutral for you. But that's the first one I've had, and generally speaking, the gearbox on here feels nice. It's nice and positive. The clutch actually is light on here. Both the brake and clutch lever are adjustable. I'm a relatively small fella, so I've adjusted them in for me. So no problem at all there. The cockpit is nice and simple, nice and old school. You've got these excellent clocks on here, unfortunately, because I've mounted the camera right there. The speedo is obscured, so sorry about that. But they do look lovely, as hopefully you saw on the walk around. I just love that. Speedo, rev counter, a few idiot lights. You don't need any more. No electronics to speak of on this bike either. There is a little LCD fuel gauge and a clock and the odo, and that's basically it as far as electronics are concerned. The rest of it is old school. There's no ABS on this that I can discern. There's no traction control or anything like that. So you've got to ride it with a bit of respect, because this thing, I suspect, would bite you if you went nuts on it. It only puts out something like 100 brake horsepower. But these sort of bikes are all about lazy cruising. You know, we're talking about horsepower and numbers. Let's just jump off the bike again and I'll take you through the spec in the usual way. Oops, I'm sure I'll be fine just to quickly go through the numbers on this bike. All right, I've written the spec down as usual in an attempt to not make any errors, but it has been known that I've made errors in the past, so don't hold me to this stuff, but it's the research I've done on the bike. All right, let's start off then with this engine, which looks absolutely incredible, as I showed you before. This is a 1251cc air-cooled 4-cylinder unit, fuel injected, and 4 valves per cylinder, which was a big selling point of this bike at the time. Puts out 98 brake horsepower at 8,000 RPM, so nice and lazy for its power. Torque 108 Newton meters at 6,000 RPM, so grunty low down. Brakes on here, it's got Yamaha 4-pot calipers, dual discs, quite small discs, but they seem to work absolutely fine. Suspension wise, looks like we've got right way up forks on here, nothing special on the front, but on the rear we have got this lovely Öhlins adjustable rear suspension setup, which does feel nice and plush, although maybe not quite as good as you think. Add a bit of pace and it starts to get a bit bouncy, but that might be because the seat is so well padded. Talking of the seat, that's a very low 795mm, so it's dead easy to get your feet on the deck. The wet weight of this bike is 245 kilograms, so it is a heavy old lump, but once you're moving, weight's nice and low, doesn't feel heavy, as bikes so often don't. The tank capacity on here, at the time that these bikes were made, this is referred to as the long range tank. It actually holds 21 litres, which is, you know, these days I suppose that is quite a big tank, I guess. A lot of play was made at the time about it having a rotary fuel pump. I've no idea why that's a good thing, but Yamaha seem to like it. Electronics on the bike, well, nothing to speak of, no ABS or traction control, anything like that. Price of the bike, when it was new, it was £8,000 in the UK. This one now, with 21,000-ish miles on the clock at the Superbike factory, is currently up for sale for £4,791, so an absolute bargain. Lots of bike for your money. If you go and check out the website below, it may already be sold, but they'll have others like this in stock, so do go and check out the links below and have a look. But there we go, that is the spec on the bike. What an absolute beauty. Will look even better without the top box, I think, but that's just my personal preference. Let's jump back on, ride us some more. All right, welcome back aboard the mighty XJR1300, and I'm just approaching the town of Chesham now. I'm going to head sort of west from here along towards a place called Chennies. It's quite a nice country road, quite a bumpy surface, should be a test for the suspension on here, which is actually very high spec. As you saw, Öhlins suspension on this, and the ride is really nice. It's really quite plush, although when you get moving, I've noticed the seat is quite well padded and quite bouncy, and the bike does start to feel a little bit bouncy when you push on, but generally speaking, for normal riding, nice and plush. And in slow traffic like this, it's really well behaved. The fueling on it is really okay. Right, let's go down this way. This engine sounds beautiful. Because I ride mostly twins, I'm always spoilt when I get on a 4-cylinder, and I always wonder why I don't own one, because they just sound epic, and they feel epic as well. Lack of vibrations is brilliant on here. Just see what's behind me. Actually, talking of seeing behind me, these mirrors on here I quite like. They look like, again, old school chrome mirrors. I like that. Look like something you'd get off of an old sports car or something. And they're nice and stable. Great view behind me, no problem there at all. There is nothing behind me. Let me just try the brakes. Yeah, front brake seems absolutely fine. Rear brake surprisingly good. I've decided you have to actually give the gearbox a bit of a positive change, because that's the second false neutral I've had now. I think that's just me being a bit pansy with the box, because this is one of those bikes that just feels solid. There's very little, if any, plastic on this. It's made from metal bits and it feels like a solid machine. Oh, I love that about these bikes. I don't know what it is, but you know, after about, I don't know, after about 2015 seem to just go a bit more plasticky, and they just don't feel quite like these proper old school bikes did. Earlier on I mentioned that these bikes had a bit of a refresh for the 2015 model year, and they got a bit more sort of hipsterish, if you like. They had a redesigned fuel tank, a different headlight, number board on the side. They went sort of I guess it's in an attempt to look even more retro. I mean, I think it looks quite retro as it is, but it was to make it a proper retro bike. And that's when most XJR1300 aficionados think that was the end of the bike, really. And I tend to agree. The earlier bikes look better, look more muscular. And then fairly soon after, I don't exactly know when they finished making them, but my guess is around 2018. Maybe somebody can let me know. But Euro 4 really put pay to these bikes, because these big, mostly air-cooled lumps just didn't pass the emissions test that Euro 4 created, which is such a shame, because these days I'm not sure there are too many bikes in this sort of category. I mean, the big Honda CBR 1000 maybe, but it's not quite as bruising as this. It's sort of a category that we don't have so much. You end up going down the more traditional cruiser route of a Harley or a Ducati Diavel, or maybe the Triumph Rocket, but those are even more extreme. Unfortunately, the Porsche in front of me isn't going anywhere in a great hurry. I wanted to sort of nip down this little road with a bit of haste just to see how this suspension handles it, but it's quite a narrow road, it's quite bumpy, it's a terrible surface down here, so I suspect I'll get a fill. Beautiful day to be out on a bike though. Just look at this weather, it's amazing. I'm recording this video middle of April, so springtime. Leaves are just starting to come out on the trees, it's looking beautiful everywhere. And at last, you know, I can come out on my rides in just a t-shirt and a light jacket, and the temperatures are all just comfortable. It's about 22 degrees centigrade here today, which for Blighty is about as good as it gets, even on a summer's day. Perfect temperature for riding. So I'm just thinking what I could compare this bike to. What does it feel like? And actually the bike that it does sort of feel like is that Yamaha VMAX that I rode. It's got that same sort of vibe about it. Not literally vibe, you know what I mean. It feels big, it feels brash, it feels powerful. Yet when you actually ride it, it is a bit of a pussycat if you're just riding it through the back lanes like this. This is the sort of riding I love to do, enjoying the beautiful scenery here in the Chilterns. I mean, what a lovely part of the world to be riding in. I don't like herring around everywhere. Of course this bike can hare around. It's got nigh on 100 horsepower. The thing could go fast, but these bikes aren't about that. As far as I'm concerned, they're just about enjoying the ride. And I'm certainly enjoying this ride here today. I must say a huge thanks to Superbike Factory for making this bike available to me. Superbike Factory are sponsors of the channel, and I'll put a link below to their website. Go and check them out, because if you want to look at bikes like this, second-hand bikes, and they have absolutely loads in stock, about 2,000 at any one time. They're the biggest second-hand bike dealer, I think, in Europe actually, and they've got a great search facility. I can just nip past here, I think. I can't quite see yet. They have a great search facility. Put in the make and model of bike you want, and they usually have a handful of that bike at varying prices. So if this one is sold by the time you watch this video, there'll probably be other big Yamahas like this available. And if I can, I'll put a link to this very bike as well. So thanks to those guys. If you've got any particular older bikes you'd like to see on the channel and future of these classic reviews, do let me know in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get hold of them. The more I ride these older bikes, the more I realise you don't have to be spending 20 grand to have a fun motorcycle. These second-hand ones really do deliver the smiles. Here we go. See you down there, mate. Yeah, absolutely effortless, the overtaking on this is brilliant. And actually this suspension is handling this bumpy road with aplomb, I have to say. Fantastic. Alright, I'm going to enjoy riding the bike some more. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like I say, check out the links below. Let me know what other bikes you'd like to see me ride here on the channel, and I'll do my best to oblige. If it's the first time you've been to the channel, do consider subscribing. It'd be fantastic to see you on the next video. Until then, this has been the Listen and Fly. Cheerio. Hey kids, it's Mr. Fly here, hope you're well, and welcome aboard the... Alright, let me show you around this beast then, and just show you some of the sort of features, design bits and... let's do it again. Oops, I'm sure I'll be fine for a moment. Right, let's talk spec then, shall we? Let's go through the numbers. I've written them down in an attempt to not... let's do that again.